Fisher is a film director and writer known for his films Inside the Rain, Single and Baller, and Love Out of Mind. Aaron suffers from bipolar disorder. In his film Inside the Rain, Aaron depicts his life living with bipolar disorder. Aaron plays college student Benjamin Glass. When a misunderstanding almost expels Benjamin from college, Benjamin is determined to set out and recreate the incident with the help of a sex worker to help clear his name. Inside the Rain shows that if you believe in yourself, anything is possible. The film also stars Ellen Toland, Rosie Perez, Eric Roberts, Catherine Curtin, and Paul Schulz. Welcome, Aaron. So, can you tell us about your bipolar disorder, when you were diagnosed? What were your symptoms?
After my first year of college, when the summer started, I felt very depressed. And when I got home, I was living at my parents' house at the time. I got really, really depressed. I think I was 19. Yeah, I was 19. I was really depressed, and I was sleeping like on a pull-out couch thing in the living room of my parents' house, because for some reason sleeping in my bedroom just felt like too depressing. I don't know why. But yeah, that went on for weeks, and then like a psychiatrist came over to the house and said, like, I want to put you on Prozac, blah blah blah. And I was saying, oh, I don't believe in Western medicine and all that stuff or whatever. What people usually say when they are confronted with this kind of thing and they don't want to take medications. So I went on the lowest dose of Prozac. He convinced me to go on it. And then after 2 weeks of that, I was very depressed. I went to bed one night and I woke up 2 hours later, feeling like I could run a marathon. And I was in euphoric state. I was literally super depressed. 2 hours later, I feel like the man. I feel euphoric. I have so much energy. I feel like everything's funny. And that, I didn't need a psychiatrist to tell me that I was bipolar. It was very obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't see anything wrong with being manic either, though. So I was kind of out of control for a month or two, I think. It ended into an even more severe crash into depression, which is why it's not worth it to get manic in the first place. But yeah, I did. I was very manic for about a month or two. I was not sleeping more than an hour or two at night, and I would wake up feeling completely refreshed, felt great, did not miss any of the sleep.
Okay. And so when you talk about your depression and then obviously your states of mania, how did they manifest themselves?
Right. Well, when I got manic, the first manic episode, I was 19. Like I told you about, I was very manic. Usually your first manic episode, I'm told, is your most severe. Mm-hmm. In my case, it was severe. I was, I thought I was one of the chosen ones, because God chose me to be one of the chosen ones. Otherwise, how could I have all these superpowers, including, I could control the weather. I thought I could read minds, people, was other things. There's a lot of things. You know, things that are obviously I wasn't. There was all kinds of crazy delusions and delusions of grandeur, and like, you know, I was yeah, I mean, it's like a lot of stuff, but then it eventually turned into paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
So it was no longer fun. Turned into being very paranoid. When I closed my eyes, I was having like sort of hallucinations. Um, and some little girl was telling me really terrible things. And then I like freaked out and kind of like ran out of the house, and then like was like lying down on the street corner or something,
Oh,
now
wow.
seeing airplanes. And I thought 9/11 was happening again. And then I was like, it just total freak out. So it's like, when you get like that paranoid, it's like, it's when you come back to the doctor and you're like, please, like, I'll take anything. Just like make it stop, you know? So yeah.
That answers the question very well.
But also there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of anxiety. I think my therapist once said bipolar should really be called tripolar, because there's depression, mania, and also anxiety in most cases.
Right. No, that makes sense. Anxiety and depression coincide with one another. I know that firsthand from somebody who deals with it. So you'd mentioned a little bit about your treatments, what you do. I guess maybe can you elaborate a little bit more? I mean, I think you'd mentioned that medication, and then you have a therapist.
So you mean my current?
I mean, you can do your current, or just kind of maybe like what you've over the years, like what you did. Doesn't
Right.
necessarily be current.
Right. Well, currently, I know this sounds crazy. People usually try to talk me out of taking them but they're not doctors. I'm currently taking 19 different prescription medications. Like
19, wow.
that doesn't mean 19 pills a day. It means 19 different prescription medications a day.
Right.
That's more than 19 pills a day. And I take, you know, morning and night. It's taken about 10, 11 years to like reach this like cocktail that actually like that, you know, works for me. So it's not like I was just throwing a bunch of medications. It was more like, you know, one trial and error, like one at a time, and seeing what works. Because like my brain chemistry, as they like to say, is very abnormal. So like they didn't really like, doctors were pretty baffled with my case trying to treat it. So there's that, and you know, so I have a psychiatrist who I speak to monthly, and I have a therapist who I speak to monthly. And yeah, and the medications, and you know, I have to do stuff that, you know, would make anyone else happy. Like I have to stay in a routine, and I have to be productive, get work done, you know, work out at the gym. I got to go to the gym. Otherwise I got to go to the gym at very least 3 times a week. Otherwise I'm just depressed by default. Yeah, I mean, you know, like there's a routine that also is like important. There's like, you know, early to rise, early to bed, early to rise, shower, shave, eat 3 square meals a day. You know, just staying in a routine like that is actually very difficult for someone like myself, because when you get a little depressed or something, it makes it so much more difficult to be like, oh, like I have to go to the bathroom and floss and brush my teeth, and then it just feels like overwhelming because you just don't feel like doing anything, and you don't feel like getting out of bed. I, you know, my path towards my mental health now was very turbulent, though. I wouldn't say it was like, you know, I had many, I ended up in psych wards too many times to count. Um, and yeah, and the last time I was in the psych ward was the screenplay for this movie Inside the Rain, which was over there. After the first 3 or 4 months of writing the script, I got so down on myself because I wasn't writing anything that felt organic, or it didn't amount to anything. I went into the psych ward as an inpatient doing ECT 3 times a week. And ECT stands for electroconvulsive therapy. It's basically where they shock your brain into being less depressed somehow. They create some kind of controlled seizure. Obviously, I wasn't experiencing it because they put me out with the anesthesiologist, like with like surgery. So I wasn't conscious for it. And they have to do that for like 12 to 20 times for it to have like a therapeutic effect. And when I got out of that, the basic premise for my movie sort of came to me a little, which was that about the school hearing. Because I knew it was a love story, but I was like, what's the vessel that's carrying the love story? And then I realized, oh, this school hearing could be it. So maybe I was inspired by the electricity they shocked my brain with. It could have been the inspiration, my muse.
You never know. I mean, this type of therapy definitely, sparks different chemicals in your brain.
Yeah, I think it did. Honestly, not like it actually gave me the idea, but it just sort of sparked my brain to be working better again.
Great. No, we're fortunate enough to have so many different types of treatments, and
and I think that one is usually like the last resort, though. But I think I've also heard of some people who do like upkeep with it, where they like actually do it just like
right.
They actually do it like once a month just to stay. On that, but
Yeah, no, for my anxiety and depression, it's obviously not bipolar, but it's still obviously still the same category. I do CBT, and when I go through, or when I have gone through really, not crazy, but very scary, episodes, I go see my cognitive behavioral therapist like literally every week.
My therapist and psychiatrist are both in New York.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing them for years. It just that when I moved to LA recently, I've just been doing it by the phone now.
Oh, I totally get it. So anyways, I can resonate with that, and I'm also on medication, and then I see my psychiatrist and so forth. How has your bipolar disorder affected your relationships, family, dating, obviously work, if anything?
Good question. I think it affects probably every aspect of my life, probably. Friendship. It's like these days, right? Like right now, like I haven't had. It's been a few years since I've had like a where I've been totally out of it. The past few years, like I don't think there's been really like a time where if someone didn't know me well, they would be like, oh, he's bipolar. Like I don't think people would know unless they asked me. And
I wouldn't have known. And
right. So that's a good thing, because the medications and the therapy is working much better than it had been in previous years.
That's great.
And a lot of people are very anti-medication for no reason. The same reason they're very like anti-vaxxer or science of any kind. Is like I can't tell how many people like telling me that that I'm killing myself with the medications I'm taking and blah blah blah. And these aren't doctors; these are just people. And it is, and I can't count how many times people have told me, "Oh, bipolar is not real. It's just it's just another stupid label," things like that. And I'm like, no. I was talking to God when I first got manic. I don't think that's very normal at all, and I wasn't on psychedelics or anything.
No.
Prozac does not make you talk to God. So these people they just have no idea, and it goes against their worldviews somehow to be like take medications. To me, it's as ridiculous as going up to someone with cancer and saying, "Oh, don't do your cancer treatment because it's actually bad for you," when they have zero evidence for it.
Right. I totally get it. I mean, I think unless somebody is living in your body, they don't really understand if they don't have it.
Well, even my psychiatrist and my therapist, I believe they understand my brain better than I do.
Well, they're professionals.
Yeah, because they do. So they, I have to listen to them. I can't listen to random people who didn't go to medical school and stuff or whatever. Who are just saying, "Oh, don't take medications, especially not 19." Like, where do you draw the limit? 4 is okay. I take 4, but 19, I don't know about that. I mean, where do they get this arbitrary number from? This is,
you is the most important, as long as you're,
yeah.
not,
But what was your question though? Was about how does bipolar affect
your friendships, dating life? I mean,
okay. Well,
family.
Yeah. I've lost a lot of friends sometimes. Not my friends from growing up in Brooklyn, but after high school. There have been many friends that have came and went, and I sort of don't blame them because I was very, I was very, every other month I was attempting suicide by overdosing on my medications and stuff. And, I don't blame these people for abandoning me because they're not doctors and it's scary. They don't want to get involved with someone who's keeps saying he's going to take a bunch of pills and having to call 911. With that, it was pretty miserable. There was more than one time where, there were a bunch of times where I lost friends completely. Dating, I feel like, dating sucks probably for anyone, but if you're bipolar,
I get it.
Yeah, but if you're bipolar, if you're getting depressed all the time, it makes it hard to go out on dates. If you're depressed, you don't feel like going out on dates or whatever, and I think that's.
But it is possible. I know people who've married, people who have bipolar disorder.
Oh yeah, no, yes, yeah, for sure. I just mean in the periods of when I'm struggling, when I'm depressed, when I've gotten very depressed, it just made dating impossible. So is that with family? I'm lucky that my family is very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
But even that can be kind of intense, especially during during the 2008 financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Me being in mental hospitals and my dad losing his business, all this stuff happening all at once.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of intense.
What has been your greatest obstacle in your life as a result of all of this, you think?
I want to say sort of maybe it's myself. My greatest obstacle has been myself, maybe, but I'm not sure. It sounds a little pretentious, but like like my mental health issues have been my main source of pain and suffering and struggle. Like I'm a third generation Holocaust survivor. My grandparents, survived the, Auschwitz, Nazi concentration camps. And I'm thinking like they got out of that and lived normal lives. And I have nothing near close to that that's happening outside of me that's that bad. But it's still a struggle just to get by, just because of my own mental illness. And I have a bunch of mental illnesses besides bipolar, but it's sort of like the common theme is really it's myself, because I have suffered a lot from mental illness.
All right, so now we're gonna get into the film, the fun stuff, quote unquote. So your film Inside the Rain chronicles you specifically. You act in it, or play the role of Benjamin. In terms of having bipolar, you also mentioned being OCD and ADHD. And so forth, and it's kind of your journey through college, and when there's an incident, you try to recreate the incident in order to kind of clear your name. Why did you decide to make the film, and what was like the process like as the film director, writer, and then also actor
and editor?
Okay, yes.
Why did I want to make the film? Well, first of all, I think someone who's creative, or someone or has like mental illness like myself, you're feeling all these strong emotions. So turning towards the arts is just, a lot of bipolar people turn towards the arts because they have all these big emotions, and that's a way to express them,
Mm-hmm.
I felt like, I had a story to tell, but I didn't know what it was yet. I just knew that it was a love story, kind of like The Graduate, where it's like funny and it's sad. And I was, I graduated from college. I was sort of feeling like like Ben in The Graduate.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't happy, but it honestly felt like I had to tell this story, or otherwise I would die. Like, it honestly felt very like I didn't even have a choice. Like, this is what I have to do, otherwise I'm going to go insane. So it didn't feel like I actually had a choice whether I was making a movie or not. And why did I want to tell it? Well, it's loosely autobiographical. So, I just wanted to, like with the film within the film, in the movie that, Ben's making, it's like me making the feature film. I was sort of doing what Ben was doing in the film, mm-hmm. where I was trying to, Ben was different for me in certain ways, but, one thing that Ben and I shared is that we both wanted validation very badly, and we both wanted to prove our innocence. So, validation as a filmmaker, validation, innocent. I am joined at the hip with Benjamin Glass in that sense. So I knew, I was, that was the same. So, it kind of felt like the script was what I was doing in real life. Yeah.
So you played the main actor, Benjamin, who the film is about. What was it like to play Benjamin as somebody who it's all about? So kind of reliving, reacting the experience of your life.
Right. What was it like? It was, like I told you with the writing, like I spent about 3.5 or 4 years writing the script.
Mm-hmm.
Just writing. That and acting and directing and editing even was, very could be very tough. Like I told you, it sent me to the psych ward at one point because I felt the writing wasn't good yet. And I had no idea what I was writing about. But it was, it was a big struggle. It was a challenge. But I kind of love it. I mean, I love acting and directing and stuff. It's stressful, but it could also be a lot of fun to be on, to be on set. My favorite scene to shoot was the rain scene. And that was a lot of fun because it was like, we were lucky because it was like 60 degrees outside and we were like, it was like, there was a wind chill and the water that we had for the rain was coming from a fire hydrant with like 3 water tower things. It was freezing. It was really freezing. It wasn't supposed to be that cold in the script, but but it was freezing. So that made it actually a lot of fun because it forced you to be in the moment when you were acting. Like you could not possibly be thinking about something else while you're standing in the rain, you're that cold. Mm-hmm. It was like every 10 to 15 minutes of shooting, we'd have to reset, because we'd start like shivering on camera. So we'd go back to holding where we dried off. And then they gave us like a new version of our outfit, which was just like a clone of the other, just to dry off again and not be like shaking, shivering, because it was really that cold. And what was your question again?
I was just asking about how, or what it was like to play your part as somebody who it's all about.
I think it was also very therapeutic, making just from start to finish. Even though there were some really, like I told you, some horrible moments like the psych ward, it was very therapeutic to finish it and show it to an audience. Mm-hmm. And people are saying, wow, this is great, and like laughing the whole time. And that's very therapeutic when it felt like I took skeletons out of my closet and displayed them to everyone, plus painted them colors and stuff. And everyone's like, wow, this is really interesting. So instead of having these these post-traumatic memories, it's like, well, I still have them, but it was very therapeutic because like I no longer care as much about, feeling like I had been discriminated against and wronged. So, like when I was writing the script also, like I was very angry. I was very angry about what I was writing about. So it would be a struggle because sometimes I'd be writing and I'm being productive. The next moment I slip into being too productive. And now all of a sudden I'm like angry and like a rage. Like going to the psychiatrist's office, screaming at the top of my lungs and crying, and like, because I'd have to like take breaks from the writing for a little because it just got, but what my therapist is telling me is like, as long as it's not angry, as long as it's like sublimating your anger into being productive, without actually literally getting like angry. So that was always like a little bit of a struggle. But yeah, it was very therapeutic to do that, because now I'm still angry about it, but I'm not like thinking about it anymore. Like I don't really care.
Right. You let it all out.
Yeah, I don't care as much. No.
So how did you decide what events you wanted to include from your life in the film?
It's a 90-minute film with 3 acts, and it's more simple than real life, because real life, was many years of stuff. It didn't have, in real life, it doesn't have like a story where it's a beginning, middle, and end. You have to make it a story. So, in the small amount of time you have, the 90 minutes, I had to choose which things I thought were that could fit inside this story. I mean, if I was making the movie like 12 hours long, then I would have put in a lot other stuff too. But you can only, you don't want to have too much going on in your story that the whole time you're watching it, it's all exposition to explain everything that's happening, because no one wants to, you don't want to watch that. So, you can only include so much, because you don't want just, like I said, just exposition, which is not, it's not good storytelling. I mean, you need exposition, but just having characters say, "Oh, yesterday I was doing this and that and that," and a lot of things also, budget constraints and stuff. So like, I took things from my life and moved them into a different location and different like the Lyft driver scene.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been one of the more true to life events in the entire film, actually. But in real life, it happened in a supermarket, not in a Lyft car. So even though it's ridiculous, it's kind of like pretty spot on.
So you watch the film, it's a great film. What is your takeaway message that you want viewers to sense or to take away themselves?
The film is called Inside the Rain because when I was writing the script, I was searching for an image that I thought represented like the main theme of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to Bob Dylan music because I go through Bob Dylan phases all the time. And I heard his song. I was listening to the song Just Like a Woman. In the beginning, he's like, "Nobody feels any pain. Tonight I stand inside the rain." And so I heard the Inside the Rain thing, and I was like, "Oh, that's it. That's the image that I'm looking for the main theme of my movie." And for me, it means it has to do with bipolar itself in life. For me, it means like, I feel like I could be in the rain and soaked and feel really miserable because I like the sun, and now I'm in LA, so I get a lot of sun.
It's a great place to help for your depression.
Yeah. No, the sun does make me happy, but yeah. So like the rain, I could be miserable, depressed, soaked, or I could be really happy where I'm like soaked and it's raining and it's really fun to be outside. Which I'm sure most people have experienced at least once in their life where they were soaked in the rain that was fun,
Of course.
If I'm mistaken, I don't know. Yeah, so for me, it was that's kind of what it meant to me. But I also wanted it to be open to interpretation for anyone else watching it. I don't think you need to have a mental illness to come up with your own interpretation that's meaningful to you. I think all good art is open to interpretation. Otherwise, it would just purely be propaganda. And I don't like. I don't even consider art that's purely propaganda as one message. I don't even consider it art. It's something else, which is fine, but it's not art, in my opinion. Yeah. Oh, and ironically, that was the most fun scene to shoot in the movie. Like it was the rain scene
Oh,
in the
Inside the
movie.
Rain, yeah.
When I was soaked and it was like 60 degrees and everything, like I was it was the most fun scene to shoot.
Well, everyone, I mean, I like being in the rain. I mean, to
I
have the
usually
rain
no, I usually hate the
pour.
rain.
Yeah, I went to a Yankee game once and it was pouring down rain and it was the craziest thing, but it was so much fun too.
Right, right.
So totally. So are you right now that you're done with Inside the Rain? I don't know, what is your next project? Are you gonna write a sequel? Are you gonna produce a sequel to this film? Or are you thinking of doing something completely the opposite?
Well, at film festivals around the country, like I would often get that question, and I would just joke around with them. I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm making Inside the Rain 2. Wetter is better." And people were laughing, but my co-star Ellen Toland, the lead actress, she was telling me just a few days ago that she said there were people in the audiences that were actually took me seriously. I was like, what? I was like, no, I was joking about the wetter is better, and that comes from like an old Super Soaker commercial. And I was like, there's gonna be so much rain, you don't even know there'll be so much rain. There'll be more rain than any movie you've ever seen. Um, no, I don't rule out the possibility of a sequel. Never say never. Um, or a sequel, or maybe using or making one of the other characters the main character of the next story or whatever, like Emma Taylor or something. But not right now. Not right now. Right now, I've I've been interested in sci-fi, so I've been reading sci-fi novels. Um, and then I got more interested in the idea of humans falling in love with AI robots. Don't ask me why. That just seemed very fascinating. Um, and I googled novels, and like I ordered books about I ordered sci-fi novels where like a human falls in love with a AI robot.
Mhm.
I'm reading those, and I also stumbled upon, for some reason, I never knew anything about this movie Ex Machina. I don't know if you've seen it.
Not seen it.
Um, it blew me away so much that I decided that I wanted to write and direct a film like it. So it would be a sci-fi psychological thriller involving AI and romance in the same vein as Ex Machina, and also partly inspired by 2001: A Space Odyssey. And so immediately after watching Ex Machina, I ordered about like 30 books. There were, more novels, and then books like just nonfiction books on just like AI and robotics.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to. I'm just very interested in it, and I want to know as much as I can about it before I even write a single word. And right now, I'm reading this in embodiment and the inner life. It's cognition and consciousness in the space of possible minds. So yeah, even the title is confusing. Like, what the hell does that mean? It's definitely not written like a popular science book. It's definitely written for like philosophy, science people, because like I understand maybe like 50% of what I'm reading, but it's really interesting, and but it has to do with it has to do with like, is there a consciousness, and if so, like how do we define it? And also like it extends to non-human minds, so it would apply to AI minds too. AI robots, like, can they actually have a consciousness, or are they just imitating human behavior? And they're just and the movie deals with that too, Ex Machina. So I find that very interesting. I'm just doing research.
That's good. It's a great time to be doing research and reading and this and that, since life has kind of been on pause for a little bit. So we have two more questions. And these are now actually nothing to do with Inside the Rain in the film. Call it the miscellaneous. What is your view on the stigma of mental health?
Well, what about it?
There's so according to the National Institute of Mental Health, about 1 in 5 people deal with mental illness. And, there's a lot of misconceptions, as we spoke about a little bit, of what is depression, what is anxiety. There's a lot of, stigmas around, oh, I have this disorder, oh, you're not going to be successful. Well, that's not necessarily true. It's us talking and what we've seen in the world and what you've done is not true. I mean, we can be productive and we can still live a great life. So I kind of was curious to know what you thought of kind of society viewing mental illness.
I think it's a complicated situation, but there is definitely stigma of mental illness. It's very real. I can tell you right now that, you can write, as of today, you can write a college application for a college admissions. You could say you're bisexual, transgender, you're wheelchair bound, you could be anything. But if you told them I'm bipolar on a college admissions essay, that would be an automatic red flag. They will not accept you. And I know this because I went through it. When I transferred colleges the first time, I went back to my college admissions counselor at my high school, who was kind enough to see me again. And he said, and he had been a admissions officer at Stanford for a number of years, so he knew he was in the know. And he said, and in the college essay I wrote that he looked at, he saw bipolar in it, and he said, you can't mention bipolar at all. He said that is an automatic red flag. You'll not get accepted. Literally, you could say you're anything, but if you're bipolar, you're out. Which that doesn't sound legal even.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like discrimination to me. Another thing is, like, when you're on a college campus, if you signed up with the disabilities office as bipolar, like I did stupidly a couple times, so they can't help you with your bipolar. All they can do, and all they really are interested in doing, is rounding you up to kick you out. Like, basically, let's say you're in college, you're not signed up with the disabilities office as bipolar, but you are bipolar. You get into an argument with someone, let's say. Things settle down. People are like, okay, there was an argument. People are going to chill out, whatever. If you're bipolar, they say this person is crazy. He's insane. And then they try to kick you out. And I faced that a lot. Like, they make you go to like a million different college admins. And they're like, and they're asking me why. They're asking me about like really delicate issues and stuff, and they're just real. It's pretty disgusting the way I was treated. The third school I went to, School of Visual Arts, my dad asked me, "Do you want to sign up for the disabilities office?" And I was like, "Hell no!" And and that was when I switched to my new therapist, who I have now. And I told him about that. He was like, "Good. Do not sign up at your school with saying you're bipolar, because it's literally just it's like they're rounding you up. If you do anything wrong, then you're going to be kicked out. If you're not signed up with the disabilities office, then you're treated like most other people. Also, another terrible thing was like at one of the schools I went to, I was very upset about something that I think anyone would be upset about, even if they weren't bipolar. But of course, it was more difficult for me being bipolar. Um, and I went to like the psychologist, whatever, at the school psychologist, and in a fit of rage, I screamed that I was gonna like sue the school, which I didn't really like. I didn't really mean it because I know I have no way of suing them. My parents are not going to let me do that or whatever. But I said it. And then she didn't tell me that that meant that everything I talked about with her wasn't confidential anymore, because I said I was suing the school, which I didn't even mean. So then I had to go to the dean of students, who's saying you can't like say that and stuff. Like, head of the disabilities office. Like, I had to speak to all these people because I said I was going to sue the school on what I thought was a confidential meeting. But apparently, if you say sue, it's no longer confidential, which I thought was pretty disgusting, honestly, because I thought I was speaking to like a real someone on my side. You know, if I'm speaking to my therapist now, who's not associated with a college, if I said I'm going to sue the school, he'll probably just laugh about it, but he's not going to call up the school dean of students and say, hey, he wants to sue you. And, because they have $1 billion endowment and many lawyers. So without going into specifics, because I'm not allowed to for legal reasons, colleges there's places where they discriminate against you in ways that seem almost satirical because it's so ridiculous. Like, I mean, after I got out of the hospital from after trying to hurt myself, taking a bunch of meds, not good, obviously, but then they're yelling at you. They're having you go to meetings with the dean of students and this and that, and they're telling you, we don't think you should be here. And you're like, but I want to be here. And they're like, no. So they have no rule where they can kick you out, but they try to intimidate you to get you to leave, which is, to me, is disgusting and also satirical. I mean, something like out of a Stanley Kubrick film.
You're really like a true inspiration.